Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Claire. I'm a contract librarian on assignment here with NOAA Central Library. This seminar series is offered through the NOAA Central Library Seminar Program, which provides an educational forum for the presentation of ideas, research updates, and news in support of NOAA's mission. Before we start, I have a few technical tips for attendees. Just so you are aware, you are muted and you're not able to unmute. However, if you have a question, you can type it into the question panel, and we will get to those during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you are having any audio or visual issues, if you can't hear the speaker or see the slides, please try logging off and logging back on. That will solve most issues in GoToWebinar. And just as a reminder, this is being recorded. If you'd like to revisit this seminar or view previous seminars, you can find them on our YouTube channel. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michael, who's going to introduce the speaker today. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for attending. My name is Michael Liddel. I am the Program Director for the Fisheries Information System, or FIS. FIS is a federal, state, regional partnership that supports science-based fisheries management. We do this by fostering collaboration and funding projects through our annual RFP. Today, Lisa Peterson, our program coordinator, is going to be talking about the RFP and the things that we're looking for in the RFP and the process of putting in an application for it. These projects focus on several areas, but it's generally throughout the entire life cycle of fisheries data collection and management. So it's electronic technologies to support data collection, data processing, and archiving and dissemination as well. So it's the full range of fisheries data collection. And through this, we hope to move the collection of fisheries data forward and promote regional priorities and collaboration. So Lisa is going to describe the whole process to you. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you all for coming to this lunchtime talk here. I wanted to start by just taking a step back and talking about kind of the motivation and reasoning behind this RFP. We all know the challenges we face for a number of reasons: economic, political, biological, and others. Gathering, analyzing, and reporting fisheries-dependent data is carried out at the state and regional levels. What that means in practical terms is that data is coming in from all directions, in all sorts of formats, and in varying degrees of quality and precision. Obviously, state and regional science and management agencies have adapted over the years and continue to adapt to get what they need from the data that they have, but there is clearly room and a need for improvements. These improvements make sense on their face. However, changing trends in management, science, and public expectations means that what has always seemed like a good idea is now really an agency imperative. The fact is that there is a constant demand from all sectors for data that is more timely, accurate, interconnected within and among regions, easily accessible by a broad array of users, and regionally comparable. All, of course, while facing constrained resources. So it may seem a bit counterintuitive to have a national program that helps facilitate improvements to data systems that are ultimately used to manage resources at the regional and state levels. But in actuality, it's this very regional structure that necessitates the type of collaboration and coordination facilitated by the FIS program. Employing a governance structure shared across agencies and across disciplines, FIS facilitates cohesiveness and collaboration between agencies, regions, and disciplines, and drives participants to think about problems in new and holistic ways. Specifically, the approach helps to facilitate information sharing among regions so that solutions that help meet priorities in one part of the country can be applied to others facing similar issues, so we're not constantly reinventing the wheel. This also supports the integration of data among the coastal states and also ensures that tools and resources and technologies are available to enable states and regions to help meet needs identified at a national level or to comply with congressional or agency directives. So why a competitive RFP process? Fisheries, by their very nature, have to be managed at the regional level, and the data programs supporting those decisions have to be based on the characteristics of the fishery being managed. However, that doesn't mean that each region should be completely independent from another. In fact, really the opposite is true. In an age, again, of very tight resources, sharing information across regions and reducing inefficiencies is an imperative. So that is what this RFP is designed to achieve. The value in prioritizing funding of different pre-implementation and implementation projects through a central mechanism, as opposed to simply divvying up the funds between the regions, lies in the ability to look at the entire landscape of solutions underway. That enables us to avoid duplication of financial and intellectual resources and bring people together who may be working on similar problems and not know it. It also opens the door to encouraging cross-regional collaborations when that's appropriate. And the way that we track projects in a centralized system provides broad, easy to locate access to progress and final reports, which cover things like lessons learned and the best approach to solutions. This RFP supports efforts by regions, science centers, states, and FINs. And the decisions on which projects get funded, the scoring and review process, is done by a team that has representatives from all of those groups. So that brings us to the 2023 RFP. So just an overview of this RFP. It's a collaboration among 3 different programs: the Fishery Information System program, which is where I work, the National Catch Share program, and also the National Observer Program's Electronic Technologies program. The focus on this RFP is fishery-dependent data. That does include both commercial and recreational fishery-dependent data. For FY23, we are anticipating up to $5.5 million available, of course, with the constant caveat that that's pending appropriations. And generally, the proposal process includes a pre-proposal, a proposal, and also a leadership approval step. So who is eligible for this RFP? So NOAA Fisheries, of course, is eligible, including regional offices, science centers, and headquarters office. Our FIN partners are also eligible for this RFP, including ACCSP, PACFIN, ACFIN, GulfFin, all the FINs. And state partners, additionally, are eligible to submit proposals through this RFP. Their funding structure is a little bit different because it's funneled through the Interstate Commissions. So if you are listening and you are a state partner, definitely check first to see if your Interstate Commission requires any prior approval for submissions to this RFP. And this RFP has funded projects all over the country in a number of different focus areas. So the RFP has been ongoing since 2013 and has expanded in that time. But as you can see, all of the regions are represented through this RFP in a number of different focus areas. One question we usually get is how many projects tend to be funded yearly, and that usually is around 30 projects are funded. So let's dig a little bit deeper into these project focus areas. So these are the categories that are supported by this RFP. I'm going to go into this first project category, the data improvements, modernization, and integration, and this last project category, the quality management and continuous improvement focus area, in a little more detail on the following slides. But for the other categories, electronic monitoring typically means the use of cameras, hardware, and software to collect and process fishery-dependent data. Electronic reporting is typically considered the collection of harvest and biological data through electronic means. An important thing about these 2 project categories is we do expect these projects to reflect the priorities outlined and the regional electronic technology implementation plans. So those were recently published, and I believe an update to those plans is underway. So be sure to read through your region's electronic technology implementation plan if you're thinking of submitting to one of these electronic technologies categories. We also have a FIN development focus area, and that covers projects that address national collaboration and coordination among the FIN programs, as well as within FIM development, such as the development of quality assurance plans, data information management and dissemination, strategic planning, outreach, developing review or improvement processes. So basically projects that are focused on developing FINs, as the name would imply. So let's dig into that first data improvements, modernization, and integration category. So for FY23, we made some changes to the data improvement, modernization, and integration, or DIMI. I'm going to try to call it from DIMI from now on, with the help of one of our professional specialty groups, the CODER PSG. So they provided language to make it clear that this category is looking at data systems, not just data. And it's also a category to consider for projects that are addressing technical debt. So I've included some of that language here, but be sure to read the guidance document for more details. This category was actually our newest focus area. It was added in FY20 following the Fisheries Information Management Modernization Workshop, or the FIM workshop. So this category also covers projects that are addressing the recommendations that came out of that workshop, as well as the recent data governance efforts that have been underway in the region. Those types of projects would all fall within this DIMI category. I also want to take a moment to go a little bit deeper into the quality management and continuous improvement focus area, because this is one where we have had people ask us what those words mean. But quality management encompasses a suite of principles and tools that guide and support an organization-wide commitment to continuous improvement. So by implementing a QMCI approach, agencies and teams and projects can enhance outcomes by first improving the underlying procedures that drive them. So whether it's combining complex and divergent information streams into a single accessible data source, or creating a strategic plan to drive a good idea from the whiteboard into the field, QMCI can help solve the everyday challenges that are faced by all of us, by scientists, by managers, and others who work with fisheries data. For this project category, I also want to highlight we have another professional specialty group that's the Quality Management and Continuous Improvement PSG. And they have put together a website on the NOAA website that you can find just by Googling NOAA Quality Management, maybe add FIS in there, but it's pretty easy to find. And it has a list of tools that you can use to implement quality management and continuous improvement. So things like ocean strategic plans and value stream mapping and data flow diagrams. And if none of those words made any sense, they also have really good explanations for what all of these tools are and how they can be used, as well as links to success stories of different offices that have used these approaches to improve their processes. So I want to recommend that even if you're not planning on submitting to this focus area, that you still go check out the QMCI webpage, because really QMCI principles should be applied to all projects that are being submitted for this RFP, because it's really all about being deliberate about the process that you are using to achieve your outcomes. The QMCI PSG also has a list of members on the webpage, so you can see who is your QMCI member at your FMC or near your FIN, and they are always willing to help out, so please reach out to them if you would like some advice on how to better implement QMCI into your project, or are interested in applying for funds under this focus area in this RFP. So as Michael mentioned at the beginning, and as you might be able to tell from the description of these different focus areas, this RFP is really trying to drive each phase of the project lifecycle, from evaluation to R&D and testing to pre-implementation and finally to implementation, and then back around again to reevaluating your processes. All of that is supported by this RFP. And I also just want to give a shout out to our professional specialty groups. These are cross-disciplinary teams that focus on addressing specific fishery-dependent data challenges by fostering communications and collaboration across regions to help develop innovative solutions, reduce duplication of effort, and enhance efficiency. So our PSGs are really driving towards the same thing that this RFP is driving towards. And they also help support the RFP itself. But regardless of where your project is in the project lifecycle, chances are this RFP could be a good opportunity to get some funding to push your project forward through the project lifecycle. All right, so now to the headline of this talk, which is what makes a good proposal? So this is just a bulleted list of some of the important things that our reviewers take into account when looking at proposals, as well as the program heads when they're looking at that final funding decision. And one key thing to think about is how your project supports the FIS or the Electronic Technologies or the National Catch Share Program vision, mission, and goals. So that's why I took a little bit of time to go through, what FIS is all about. Because we are really looking to fund projects that are supporting that idea of, improvements, of continuous improvements, of cross-regional collaboration. And you will need to be able to articulate that in your pre-proposal and proposal, how your project fits within these programs. We also take into account whether the project is a regional priority. So as I mentioned, with the ET projects, we look for the connection between the ET project and the electronic technology implementation plans for the region it's coming from. But for the other focus areas, we are also looking for a demonstrated regional priority. And one of the questions in both the pre-proposal and proposal is to provide, a link to some sort of document, like a strategic plan for your region, or maybe a national plan that that your project falls under, because we want to be sure that we are driving forward the different regions in a way that is addressing what their priorities are. We also do look at leveraged resources, and that can mean money, but it can also mean time and pre-existing systems that NOAA already has that you are planning on using for your project. We look at that. And another important aspect of this RFP is we really do promote collaboration. So a collaborative project can be across agencies, that could be across disciplines, that could be across regions, and this could be both direct collaboration where you have multiple FMCs or a FMC and a FIN all on the same project, or indirectly where you are willing to share the lessons learned to different FMCs in order to get the key solutions that you found, or the anti-solutions that you found, whatever you've learned from your project, sharing that with other groups that could find that useful. We also promote the idea of using Lantern for some of this collaboration. So the Lantern program allows for, it's basically the new rotational assignments, but it's a lot more flexible than that system was. So this idea of, sharing expertise, if you hear about someone in the Northeast who is doing, put together some sort of software that you in the Southeast could really use. Using a lantern assignment could be an opportunity to get that expertise into your office and learn from them. So we do look for projects that are utilizing the lantern system. As far as the specifics in the pre-proposal and proposal go, we really want a clearly articulated outcome. And that may seem obvious, but is actually can be very difficult. You know, what exactly are you trying to achieve? If you are able to achieve all your objectives, what will the outcome look like? And also, what are the plans for continuing the work if there's continuous work that needs to be done? You know, the RFP is 1 year of funding. So after that year, what is your plan for, you know, having, if there's some sort of product, will that product have a home? You know, what does the outcome look like? And related to that is just having a detailed budget, being thoughtful about what you include in your budget. You know, what, not just numbers of dollars, but what exactly are you going to be using your money for? And being sure to split that into categories on the proposal so that it's easy for reviewers to see, you know, what is the benefit of the money that you're asking for. And I just want to once again plug reading the RFP guidance document. So there's a link to the guidance document on the FIS web page, which I'll show you in a second. But there's a lot of good information in there, both more details on the focus areas, also details on scoring criteria, and a more detailed schedule. So I highly recommend, you know, going through the guidance document, looking at the resources that are linked in there, and really understanding this RFP, and that will help you put together a good proposal. So as far as timeline goes, the RFP is open right now. It was officially announced yesterday. So that means we are accepting pre-proposals as we speak. But the deadline for pre-proposals is April 8th. And I will show you what the pre-proposal looks like, but it's a much abridged version of the proposal. So it's a pretty quick proposal, but I do want to recommend that you be very thoughtful in filling out the different fields for that. Once pre-proposals have been received, we do have a leadership approval step. So this goes back to, you know, demonstrated regional priority. So we will be reaching out to regional leadership or FMC leadership more specifically, and FIN leadership to review pre-proposals and provide approval for them. And this step is really important because we want to be sure that the proposals that are being submitted, you know, the leadership is aware of, and that there is buy-in by leadership. Once that step has concluded, the pre-proposals will be reviewed by the FIS program management team. They will provide feedback to submitters, and I highly recommend that if you do submit a pre-proposal, that you take careful look at the feedback that's provided as you put together your full proposal. We try to provide comprehensive and helpful pre-proposal feedback to improve the quality of the full proposal. And then full proposals will be due June 24th. And then following submission of full proposals, we will have another leadership approval step where leadership will also get a chance to prioritize the proposals. And this is not ranking, this is providing a label for each proposal that's a high priority, medium priority, or low priority for the region. Excuse me. And then the proposals will be reviewed and scored by a broader group, including members from the FIS community, as well as the ET community. We really rely on people working in electronic technologies to review the electronic monitoring and electronic reporting proposals we have submitted. And then the program heads will meet and funding decisions will be announced in the fall. So this is an FY23 RFP, so that means that this is an annual process. So funds will not be distributed until spring of 2023. And of course, that is always depending on appropriations. But the money does tend to go out in the spring. I want to mention one other part of the full proposals, and that is the metrics tab. So when you get to the full proposal stage, there is a tab labeled metrics that essentially is asking you to articulate the impact of your project. And so this allows us to evaluate the impacts of the RFP, look at year-by-year comparisons, and it just helps us keep track of, what kinds of things are we funding with the RFP, where seems to be their priorities year after year. But I bring this up because I want to emphasize that this is not part of the proposal scoring, this tab, this metrics tab. So if you are filling out your full proposal, please be honest with this tab, with this metrics tab, because again, it's not part of the proposal scoring. We really are just looking for an honest evaluation of, will the outcome of your project result in combined data streams or a modernized system or, resource savings in some way. And again, it's not part of the proposal scoring, so please answer that honestly. All right, so we have gotten to the demo portion of this presentation. So I'm going to show you where you will be submitting pre-proposals. But actually, the first thing I want to show you is the FIS web page real quick. So you can find this, so the URL is up here, but it's pretty easy to find. You can just search Google FIS and NOAA, and this should come up. But I wanted to show you this because this is where you can find a link to the guidance document. So besides having a lot of good information about our professional specialty groups, more information about the RFP and the program in general, as well as some success stories, if you go to the bottom here, you can see FIS 2023 Request for Proposal Guidance Document. So this is on the web page right now. And I wanted to show you this because both to, again, plug the idea of that everyone that's submitting to this RFP should, take some time to go through this guidance document. But I also want to bring your attention to the second page list of resources. So especially these first three links can be really useful. So this first one, how to submit an FIS proposal, takes you to a PIMS instruction page. This is probably a little hard to read, but it includes how to register an account with PIMS, how to submit your pre-proposal, how to submit your proposal. And if you are funded, it also includes instructions for submitting quarterly reports throughout the year of the project, as well as a final report at the conclusion of your project, both of which are required. So this is a very useful set of instructions. And then the second two links here are templates. So I'm going to show you PIMS, which is where you actually do have to submit your pre-proposal and proposal, but people do find it useful to have templates that they can fill out separately and then put it into the system. So these three links can be particularly useful. So it also has a link to PIMS, which I'm going to use to get us to the Program Information Management System. And I'm going to log myself out real quick so I can show you what this looks like. Okay, so this is the Program Information Management System, or PIMS. And so if you are thinking about submitting a pre-proposal, you will need to self-register for an account if you are a NOAA employee, if you have a NOAA email address. So if you have a NOAA email address and you haven't used PIMS before, you can put your email address and your email password into here and click the self-register button. That will take you to a page that will allow you to select FIS as the program. So that will give you access to the RFP within PIMS. If you do not have a NOAA.gov email address, you can email me or you can email the PIMS admin, and we can get you set up with an account. It's very easy, very quick, and we can do that right away. So just shoot me an email and I can get you into the system. But for NOAA employees, again, you're going to use your email address and your email password to log into the system. And so once you get in here, your front page is going to look a little differently than mine, but you should have a tab that says Programs. So when you click on this, if you did your self-registration right and selected FIS as your program, you should see the FIS Electronic Technologies Catch Share Program RFP link under the Programs tab. So you'll click Open, and that will take you to another screen. Again, yours will probably look a little bit different than mine, but you should see this button that says Submit Proposal. So when you click that, that will take you to the pre-proposal screen. So this is kind of like the cover page. It does have all of the fields on the pre-proposal, but to just get it started, I'll just, have my classic Lisa test project. And then you hit create, and that will automatically create a pre-proposal draft for the FY23 RFP. So in here, you can see all of the fields for the pre-proposal. So I wanted to bring everyone in here because you can see there's character limits for a lot of these, so that's important to keep in mind. All of these character limits are labeled on the template as well, so you will be able to see those even if you're using the template. But also, you see these question marks. If you hover over the question marks, that will give you help text for each of the fields. And I also wanted to bring everyone in here because we added a little bit, we added a new functionality this year. So if you are submitting a project that is maybe a year 2 or a phase 2 of a project that has been funded previously, we would like you to put that in this box. So if it was an FY20 project, you would select 2020, and then there will be a drop-down box that will let you pick what project this is a phase 2 or part 2 or year 2 of. And that will automatically connect the projects, which will be helpful for reviewers who are reviewing your project. So we also added a question about if you, again, have been previously funded, make sure that your quarterly reports are up to date for those previously funded projects. And if the project is complete, be sure to submit a final report because we will be asking about those in your new project pre-proposal. So remember to save your work. The PIMS system does automatically log out after 30 minutes of inactivity. So be sure to regularly save your work. And once you are complete with your pre-proposal, you will hit this submit button and the status should change to pre-proposal submitted. And for the full proposal, once we get to that phase, you will see another tab up here that will say proposal. And that will be similarly structured with fields to fill out and different tabs. So with the pre-proposal, there's only the main tab and the budget tab. Yeah, I didn't save, so I got a little warning. I'm gonna ignore it. And this is where you will fill out your budget information. For the pre-proposal, this is preliminary budget information, so this does not need to be as detailed as we will be asking for in the full proposal. I also want to draw your attention up here to these buttons. So this button is a template PDF, so it will show both the pre-proposal and full proposal templates in a PDF, as well as links to the Google document form of the templates. The guide is a link to the guidance document, which again everyone should read. And then if your project is funded at the conclusion of your project, again, we expect a final report, and this is a PDF of the final report template. So that is a quick run through of what PIMS looks like. And absolutely feel free to reach out if you have any trouble with this or if you have any questions on PIMS. With that, I will leave the contact information up here again. So this is a link to the FIS web page that has a link to the guidance document. And then I have the contact information for each of the programs. Yeah, and so with that, I will take any questions.
Thanks, Lisa. I don't see any questions yet, but I will leave it open for questions for a few minutes while people are typing. Okay, so the first question that came through, what is the significance of the pre-proposal? Why not just submit a proposal?
Good question. So we started having the pre-proposals a few years ago, and the idea with the pre-proposals is to really try to improve the quality of the full proposals. We find by having people forced to put together a pre-proposal that outlines, you know, the goals, the objectives, the general methodology to be used, that we can provide feedback to the submitter in that in-between phase, and that then improves the quality of the full proposal and helps both reviewers better understand what the submitter is asking to do, and also it helps the submitter better articulate what it is that they're trying to do. And it also gives us that opportunity to have the leadership approval stage where, you know, we have the pre-proposals, and so we go back to the regional leadership and make sure that the project is a priority for that region. And again, that can help guide the development of the full proposal. So it's really just trying to improve the quality of the full proposals and the projects themselves. And if you look at the pre-proposals, it's definitely a shortened version. It's really just trying to get an idea of what the project is all about. So it's not a huge, in my opinion, it's not a huge lift for the submitter to do that, but it does, having that process does improve the full proposals.
Thanks. The next question is, can collaborations be with external partners such as universities or state agencies?
Yes, definitely. Those are also encouraged. We have had projects in the past that have worked with universities, and you can find those. There's a link to previously funded projects on the FIS web page if you want to look for examples. But yeah, we recommend, where we definitely support collaborations with universities and external partners.
Okay, next question, is a list available of last year's proposals that were funded?
Yes. Actually, I still have control, I can show. So again, if you go to the FIS website, actually it's linked in the guidance document as well, but we have a link here. We have supported more than 200 projects. If you click that, that will take you to a page that might take a minute to load, but this has a list of almost all of the previously funded projects, but all the way back to, I believe, 2016. But if you click 2022, you will be able to see projects that were funded in 2022, 2021. So you'll be able to see that, and you can also filter this by focus area as well, which can be useful, and by lead office, and also you can look for keywords.
Okay, the next question is, we have a new platform for gathering data. Can we submit a pre-proposal for a pilot project?
Yes, this RFP does support pilot projects and have definitely done that in the past. So R&D and testing, those have covered different pilot projects. So yes, absolutely.
All right, and just a reminder, if you have questions, you can type them into the questions panel. I do see one here that I missed earlier that came through while you were giving your presentation. It's just looks like they're asking what Lantern is. If you could elaborate on that that you mentioned.
Yes, I apologize to, I'm trying to remember the acronym, but essentially, if you remember the National Rotational Assignment Program, this replaced that program. And so I think if you search Lantern NOAA, you can get a lot of information on it, but basically it is a system that allows for offices to put forward assignments or opportunities, I think they call them, for bringing in people from other parts of NOAA to work on a project. So this includes details, so longer term projects where it's, you know, a full-time type assignment where you have, you know, 40 hours a week, you have someone working on a project in your office, but it also includes shorter term opportunities, one-time opportunities where it's, you know, less than 40 hours where you just want someone to come in to work on something. I think there's also recurring Lantern opportunities if that's something. So it's very flexible, and it basically, it's providing a network of development opportunities to try to leverage employees' abilities, their needs, their talents, their energies, things like that. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. And we haven't had a RFP project utilize Lantern as of yet, but we would like one to, because we think this could be a really good opportunity or a good way to bring in expertise from, you know, a different FMC to your office. And it is only open to federal employees. So for similar things with like PINs, that would need to be through a different mechanism. And the states would need to be through a different mechanism. But for NOAA employees, I recommend just, you know, Googling NOAA Lantern. And I believe Karen Abrams is one of the managers of this, and it's for all the different line offices as well. So sorry, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's pretty cool. So I definitely recommend looking into that if you know, especially if you have someone in mind from a different office that you are thinking about, you know, would be useful to have come in, you know, maybe for a week or maybe for 6 months. That could be a part of this, a part of your project that you can include in the proposal.
Thanks. We do have another question here. The RFP states that multi-year projects are accepted, but that you would still need to apply each year. What would be the advantage to applying for multi-year if you would need to reapply anyway?
Yeah, so the multi-year is not actually a like separate section of the RFP. So basically that's just articulating the fact that we, you know, do support a project that might be a phase 2 of a project. So a project, you know, that was funded the previous year, maybe there's a, you know, a follow-up work that needs to be done. And, you know, so it can be labeled as a phase 2, but there isn't a mechanism for having a project that is multi-year where you don't have to apply again. So that section of the guidance document is really just trying to say that, yes, if it's a phase 2, you that is eligible for the RFP, but it does have to be resubmitted as a second year. So a benefit of that is that you can reference the first phase of the project and talk about, if there was a successful outcome, that, you were able to achieve this with phase 1. And so you're envisioning that phase 2 will be able to achieve this. That can be a good, way to describe a project that you're building off of successes. But it is next year of funding, so it has to be applied for again.
Thanks. So it looks like that is all the questions we have for today. So with that, oh, and another one just came through just as I was speaking. Here we go. In regards to the collaboration with external parties question, can the funds be used to bring on a NOAA contractor that works on an external party system that would be beneficial to both them and the government?
So I think so, but that the question of the contracting funds I always hesitate because I don't want to say something that's wrong, but if you have a specific example, please email me with the question. But generally speaking, yes, the funds can be used to, contract out work. I know we've had projects in the past that have, contracted through universities to have like graduate students work on projects as well. So I think the main restriction is that the funds cannot be used to fund FTEs. But Michael, if I've said anything wrong, please correct me.
No, that's correct. It can't be used for federal salary. You can get a contractor with it. The mechanics of getting a contractor that's already under contract can be complicated, so I'm not sure how that would work. But the program doesn't have anything against it if you can work out the logistics with a budget office.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to give it a few more seconds to see if there are any questions that are coming through. All right, and it doesn't look like there's anything, so I just want to say thank you to Michael and Lisa. Thank you all for joining us. You'll be able to find this presentation on YouTube. When you close the seminar, you will see a survey. We do use those surveys to improve marketing our library seminar service and to inform future seminar topics. So if you could fill that out, that does help the library outreach team. Thank you all again for joining us and have a great rest of your day.